All right, so I have made my favorite pound cake recipe, and I am just about to bake a loaf pan of it. And I'm going to save the rest of it in two different containers. One I'm going to put in the refrigerator, and 2 days from now I'm going to bake the one that I put in the refrigerator. And I'm going to put the other container in the freezer, and in 2 or 3 days I'll take it out and thaw it, and we'll compare the texture of the three different cakes to see if you can in fact save cake batter and bake it at a later time. So I'm going to put this one into the oven at 300 degrees and bake it for about an hour and a half. One of these I'm going to put in the refrigerator because cake batter is supposed to be good in the refrigerator up to 2 days. And this one is going into the freezer. And I'm going to leave it 2 or 3 days and then take it out and let it thaw and cook it and see what the texture is and how the texture compares among the three. I'm continuing with my experiment on whether or not you can save cake batter and use it at a later time. So I have this container that I had put into the refrigerator 2 days ago, and I'm going to take a couple of little loaf pans and grease and flour them. I'm not sure it'll all go into one, so I'm going to prepare 2 little pans. And I'm going to preheat the oven at 300 degrees and go ahead and bake these. I'm going to drop a little flour into them around. Knock off the excess. So I'm going to stir it up since it's been sitting in the refrigerator for 2 days. Stir it up, maybe get a little air into it. I don't know if this is going to help or not. So I'm going to spoon this into the little loaf pans. So I'm going to put this into the oven and bake it at 350. And I'm not sure how long it's going to take because it's smaller than the bigger loaf pan, but we'll see. When I made the pound cake the other day, 2 days ago, I put one container in the refrigerator, which I've just put into the oven to bake now. And this is the other container that's frozen. So I'm going to put it into the refrigerator now, still covered, and let it thaw for a couple of days. And then I'm going to bake it and see what the difference in the texture is. My alarm is going off for the little pound cake made from the batter that has been in the refrigerator for 2 days. And it did take the full hour and a half. It did not take 15 minutes extra like the larger loaf pan did, but this one did take a full 90 minutes. There we go. It was just mainly around the top that it was stuck. So let's see what this one looks like. It looks very So I'm going to get out a piece that was left from the bigger one so that you can see the texture here. Very fine texture. Now, cut this one. Oh darn, if I cut it, I have to eat it, right? Well, would you believe the texture is just as good as the original one? This is the original one, made the day that the batter was made. Ooh, this is too hot to pick up. And here is the texture of the one we just made. And I see no difference. And it rose. I'm really surprised because I figured it would kind of squat, you know, and have a center maybe that wasn't cooked very well. I did take the batter that's in the freezer, been in the freezer for 2 days. I took it out of the freezer and put it into the refrigerator. So 2 days from now, I'll take it out and bake it and see if there's any difference in the texture of the frozen batter. 4 days ago, I made a pound cake and I baked about half of it, and then I put up 2 containers like this, and I put part of the batter, part of the cake batter, into each of these 2 containers. One I put in the refrigerator, and after 2 days I baked it. And now this went into the freezer, and on the second day after it had been frozen, I took it out of the freezer, and it's been thawing for 2 days in the refrigerator. So I'm gonna stir it up a little bit. And I have my oven preheating to 300 degrees, and I have one of these little loaf pans greased, and I need to put a little flour in it. And I'm going to pour the batter into the prepared pan and bake it for about an hour and a half. It took an hour and 45 minutes for the bigger loaf pan, which is this one, to bake. But it only took an hour and a half for the smaller one to bake. So I'm assuming this one will take an hour and a half as well. So in the batter goes, and after it's baked, we'll cut the cake and compare the texture and the density of the cake to the other 2, and see whether in fact you can store cake batter for later use. It's a little bit too full, but it's really not enough to make 2 out of. Okay, so into the oven it goes. I've just taken the third little pound cake out. This is the batter that was stored in the freezer 4 days ago. 2 days ago, I took it out and put it into the refrigerator to thaw. And it took it 2 days to thaw. So let me see if I can get the cake out of the little pan. I need to cut it and see what the texture is. The first one. Now it's the bigger, made in the bigger loaf pan. And this is the second one that was stored in the refrigerator. And this is the third one. Here's the first one. Here's the second one. And here's the third one. And even though I tore it up, taking it out of the pan, the texture is still the same. So if you found this video helpful, please like and share. And thanks for stopping by.